Hi, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for you, talking about the brand new Arrow 4K edition of Demolition Man. This was always one of my favorite guilty pleasures, one of those Stallone, Wesley Snipes action movies you'd throw on in the 90s just for some serious action with an interesting little story. And I don't even think we fully comprehended how much was really going on in this movie, but watching it now, if you've never seen Demolition Man, I don't want to give too much away, but this 1993 actioner was the first time that Sylvester Stallone really tried something a little different. After making things like Rambo and Rocky, he made a science fiction action movie with Wesley Snipes and a bunch of special effects and action scenes and all that kind of stuff. This movie is way ahead of its time. Marco Brambilla directed it. It turns out he is more of an artist than a film director. He directed 4 things, including Dinotopia. But this was his first film, and he was actually suggested for the job by David Fincher. What does that tell you? He had directed a lot of high-profile, big, expensive, big-budget commercials, and that led him to work in the movies. He directed 4 things and went back to doing art, which he's still doing today. The guy's still around, but I actually think he did a great job on this film. Had about a $57 million budget. It went on to gross $159 million, so that's a hit, especially during the time, 1993. Didn't have a whole lot of giant blockbusters making $1 billion back then. Daniel Waters co-wrote it from an idea from some other people. The script was in development hell for a long time. There were a lot of other people attached to it, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, etc., because they were all big names at the time. Joel Silver's company produced it. They finally got it off the ground, got it made, got it budgeted. Debuted back in 1993 and became a big hit for Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and a very, very young Sandra Bullock. It was one of her first roles. The movie tells the story of, in 1996, which was 3 years in the future at the time, Los Angeles is kind of a war zone, and basically we have Sylvester Stallone's character, John Spartan, is a no-nonsense cop who's out to get Wesley Snipes' character, Simon Phoenix, because he's a really terrible bad guy in modern times. He's kind of taken over this part of downtown L.A., won't let anybody in, and has taken some hostages, that kind of thing. So it plays out, and long story short, both of them get convicted of crimes because of what happens during this opening salvo. This was something that was added to the script later. One of the writers said, we really can't have you be impressed with Oz if we don't show you, Kansas first. I thought that was a great analogy, because you really wouldn't appreciate the future if you didn't see that war zone and why these gentlemen were put in cold freeze. Fast forward to 2032, and due to things you won't find out till the end of the movie, Wesley Snipes' character, Simon Phoenix, is released. He escapes, and they have to bring John Spartan, a relic from a previous era, to catch him, because nobody's prepared, as they say, for this level of violence. No cops are trained for this level of violence, says Rob Schneider in the film. Also an early film for him. It was really good. A buddy of mine, Chris, said, I don't think that movie probably aged well. And I thought, it probably didn't. But as I started watching it, it actually did. The writers were way ahead of their time and got a lot of things right. Again, if you've never seen the movie, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it is your typical 90s action movie laid over with this story of the fish out of water, a guy who's from a time of violence and stuff, and basically a kind of dystopian fascist future. I mean, they don't really play it that way. It's supposed to be a nice, better future because there's no violence and everybody's happy and everything. But they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't eat anything that's bad for them. They don't cuss, they don't, all of humanity has kind of been removed. Sandra Bullock's character is a police officer who is a big fan of the previous decade. She's got a big Red Hot Chili Peppers poster on the wall, and samurai sword and other elements of the 20th century that she's just a big fan of that stuff. So she is the perfect character to be paired with somebody from the past where she can kind of open her eyes to what the past was really like and kind of help him as the fish out of water in modern times. All of that is played out very well. The budget is very well spent. I got to say, Sylvester Stallone does a great job. Is he Sylvester Stallone in this movie? Yes, but he does a great job as playing John Spartan. He's a little different. He's a bit younger, and he's in incredible shape in this film. I got to say, Wesley Snipes steals the show as the bad guy. He is chewing scenery and having so much fun in this role. I understand when the Arrow edition comes with a book. I'll talk about that. And there's some essays in there. And it turns out that Wesley Snipes turned down the role quite a few times. That the director and Joel Silver actually went to when he was filming Rising Sun and convinced him to be in the movie that this was going to be something different. And watching it now, it definitely is. So the Arrow Special Edition, I enjoyed it from beginning to end, by the way. It wasn't as laugh out loud funny all the way through as, say, a Deadpool movie is, but it still retains a lot of the humor. There is a great clip where they're watching old shots of John Spartan in the past, and he's rescued a little girl from a building, and a news reporter runs up to him and says, do you have anything to say on rescuing a girl who's, the place that you just destroyed was worth $7 million, but the ransom was only $25 million, and the girl cusses the reporter out. And it's a laugh out loud scene. It's very funny. And there's a lot of those in the film. What's even more fun is the fact that a lot of these references and things to this future and corporate ownership and that kind of thing is more relevant even now. The fact that there were fast food wars and Taco Bell won. So that's one of the things I'll talk about with this Arrow Special Edition. Arrow is a boutique company who does really good restorations. They're up there with Criterion Collection and some of the other boutique labels, and they really do nice box sets. If you get them when they first came out, the limited edition box sets come in rigid boxes. You usually get the 4K. You usually get a 60-page book, give or take, posters, stickers, that kind of stuff. It's all a very, very nice package, and if you pre-order, it doesn't cost much more than what this standard edition is going to cost later. They will eventually release like a standard edition single disc. It won't come with all the other stuff, and it'll be a more reasonable price. But they've done movies like American Werewolf in London and Flash Gordon and Donnie Darko. I mean, they're a lot of Argento horror movies from the 70s are in these Arrow box sets, and I only have a few of them, but I really like this one. It's a full slipcover over the hard box, which is something I hadn't seen them do before. Then the rigid box has a new artwork design that is available on a reversible cover on the 4K. It's also, there's a reversible poster that it comes with. It's the standard movie poster on one side and this new artwork on the other. You get two stickers. One's a saying from Edgar Friendly. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Other's a sticker of the three seashells, which is a recurring joke in the movie. The booklet is great. I read through some of the essays. As always, they knocked that out of the park. They've talked to the director. They've talked to people that worked on the film, or some of them are experts, movie experts. All of these little booklets that are included with these Arrow things are actually not just throwaway stuff with a bunch of pictures in it. There's some really interesting things you learn about the movies. And, of course, they put all the restorations. Okay, so how does the 4K look? Freaking amazing. I have the old Warner Brothers Blu-ray. I did not compare them because I didn't need to. The Blu-ray's always been fine. The soundtrack on that's always been fine. But this has been fully restored from the original 35 millimeter negative. It's also been remixed in Dolby Atmos. Looks and sounds fantastic. There is a fine layer of film grain, but it is very fine. Nothing looks waxy. Nothing's been erased. It very much looks like a film, but man, it's a solid, very, very solid, sharp-looking transfer. Not 4K crispy like a modern movie. This film digitally still looks like a movie, but man, it looks fantastic. Sometimes when they take these old 5.1 soundtracks and put them in Dolby Atmos, that's basically what they do. Maybe give you a couple overhead shots. I found this to be quite immersive, especially during helicopter scenes or other scenes that had overhead whatever making sounds. There were some great panning effects during fight scenes. There's a couple of fight scenes that take place in the cryogenic lab, and things are flying around over your head. You can hear the whooshes and the things and the machinery up, down, beside you, because there's a lot of cameras spinning around and a lot of effects going around. There's a lot of swirling around the room. It actually was a quite immersive mix. It still is not, a modern soundtrack where they've spent millions on the mix, but it's really good for what it is, and it certainly sounds better than the original Blu-ray. I'll have to do an A/B comparison. The Arrow disc does not come with a Blu-ray, but all in all, I was floored by how great it looked and how it sounded. How it sounded. It's almost modern movie standards, and that's amazing for a movie that came out in 1993. The restoration is great. The soundtrack is great. Fabulous. I can highly recommend this package, or wait for the standard edition if you don't want all the swag. But if this is one of your favorite movies, it not only holds up well, but this Arrow edition is freaking amazing. Here's one recommendation and one thing I don't like. they put the international version on here, and I've never seen that. If you don't know the difference, Taco Bell paid millions of dollars to be the fast food giant that won the fast food wars within the frame of the movie. So they won the war. All restaurants are Taco Bell in the U.S. version of the movie. They go to a nice restaurant, and it's Taco Bell. The Taco Bell logo's on everything. They talk about Taco Bell. The international version replaces Taco Bell with Pizza Hut. For those that know, both companies were owned by PepsiCo at the time, and so it made sense. But they did a really lame job on the international version. The lines where they say Pizza Hut are just badly dubbed over. You can still see that Sandra Bullock says Taco Bell, but Pizza Hut comes out of her mouth. Also, the replacing of the logos is basically a square Pizza Hut logo just plastered and not very well over where the Taco Bell logo is. It was really... they really couldn't have done more. I mean, granted, at the time, digitally, we couldn't do a whole lot in 1993. They couldn't have filmed the scenes separately and maybe just put another logo in there and said the lines differently. This was something that happened after the fact in post-production, and it just doesn't really look good. So I highly recommend watching the U.S. version unless you just really want to see what it looks like with Pizza Hut in it. That's the version I watched. Otherwise, the movie seems unchanged. They do a streaming thing with the 4K disc, so you're not really missing out on anything else. They just replace those scenes. And the replacement is awful. It would have looked fine on TV back in the day, maybe even on Blu-ray. But on 4K, you can see, it moves a little bit. It just doesn't look like it's part of it looks superimposed as it is. So anyway, that would be the only negative, but that's what you get on the international version. Watch the U.S. theatrical version. You won't have that problem. Everybody will say Taco Bell when they say Taco Bell, and the logos will be correct in the scene. Other than that, I have zero complaints. I can't wait to go more reading on the essays, do more diving into that little booklet. And I watched some of the extras, by the way. All of them, pretty much all of them. Well, I didn't watch the last two. They might be legacy ones, but there weren't a whole lot of extras for this movie anyway. All of the extras I watched were all new, produced in 2024 in 4K. So kudos to Arrow for doing that. They talked to the fight coordinator. He's still alive. They talked to the producers. They talked to, it really is a nice package if you're a fan of this film, and I'm surprised at how well it holds up. So I think that's all I need to say without getting into spoilers. Pick up Demolition Man. It came out at the beginning of December. My copy finally arrived directly from Vinegar Syndrome. You can order it from Amazon and a few other places, or, like I said, wait for the standard edition that's usually released a few months after the limited edition. But if you want all the swag, it's worth it. Demolition Man. I'm glad I took a gamble on it. It turned out great. I'm Scott. I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way. More reviews, too. So thank you for listening, and have a Merry Christmas.